Snow leapt out of the valley floor in white geysers where the rounds hit. Down! Down! Lieutenant Rios slammed his shoulder against the low snow berm, unseen bullets carving the air inches over his helmet. The slope above them flashed with muzzle fire, tiny orange mouths along the black rock, spitting metal down into the narrow throat of the valley. The world had shrunk to white walls on both sides, a churned strip of road in the middle, and death pouring in from above. Tracers tore overhead, green and red streaks shredding the blowing snow. Somewhere behind him, the last armored truck burned with a soft, steady roar, a plume of greasy smoke smearing the sky. Its engine had fallen silent 20 minutes ago, but the ammo inside still cooked off from time to time with dull, stomach-punch thumps. Rios dug his face into his sleeve, thumbed the radio handset pressed to his chest. Hammer 1, this is Talon 6. We are in the valley and taking heavy. His words dissolved in a static and a low, ugly hum that vibrated in his teeth. He pulled the handset away like it had bitten him. Come on, come on. Sir. A young private huddled beside him, eyes too wide, helmet iced over with powdered snow. Can't you reach them? Rios tried again, cycling channels, calling call signs that normally came back with bored professionalism or sarcasm. Each one answered only with broken syllables and that same throbbing interference. Net's dead. The platoon sergeant snarled from the other side of the berm. Somebody's frying us. As if to underline it, a mortar round landed 30 meters short of their position, kicking up a perfect blossom of white and black. The boom rolled down the valley, bouncing off the cliff faces. Snow dust drifted back onto them like ash. Zero in, Rios muttered. They're walking in. Another round hit just past them this time, the timing tight, almost conversational. Spot, adjust fire again. Too clean for guesswork. Someone up there was watching them, counting them. A shriek cut across the chaos. Rios twisted in time to see a soldier in the open, a private he barely knew, the kid with the crooked grin from the outpost gym, break from cover and sprint for the shadow of a rock outcrop 10 meters away. Marcus, no, the sergeant bellowed. Machine gun fire met the sprint halfway. The private folded mid-stride, tumbling into the snow, his rifle skittering away. His body twitched once, then went still, steam already leaking from the dark stains spreading under him. Nobody moved to get him. Nobody dared. The snow berm that sheltered them was barely a knee-high ridge of plowed roadside. Behind it, men and women lay belly down, pressed into icy mud, trying to make themselves smaller. Some fired blindly uphill, but most kept their heads pinned, knowing that the moment they rose above the berm's line, they were silhouetted and dead. Rios felt the shape of the valley like a diagram in his head. Narrow floor, rising sides. The convoy strung out along the road. The lead vehicle blown open in a jagged V of metal at the front. The comms truck in the middle, pocked and dented. The last truck half off the road, nose buried in the snow bank where the second blast had taken its rear axle off. High ground on both sides. Fields of fire overlapping like a net. No cover worth the name. A perfect kill box, he said under his breath. They drew us into a damn perfect kill box. What? The sergeant shouted over the gunfire. Nothing. Rios wiped eyes from his lashes. He could feel the small analog watch on his wrist, the sweep of its second hand under his glove. Every tick was fuel, was wounded, was blood leaking out into snow. Their extraction bird was scheduled to check in, hover 2 ridges away, waiting for a go code and a landing zone marker. If it didn't signal soon, it would wave off, low on fuel, and by the time it could get back, there might not be anyone left to pick up. Up on the left-hand ridge, a machine gun nest shifted its fire, stitching a path across the valley floor toward the last functioning vehicle. A cargo truck that still ran, engine revving in panic bursts as the driver tried to angle it as cover. Rounds punched through the windshield, spiderwebbing glass. Rabbit 1, back it up, Rios yelled into the useless radio, then resorted to his lungs. Back it up. Get that engine behind the berm. The driver couldn't hear him. The gun's arc crept closer, sparks jumping where rounds smacked steel. Rios rolled onto one elbow, lifting his own rifle, sighting up at the nest. It was too far, the angle bad, the wind shoving the barrel offline. His first shot went nowhere. His second, too. The gunner didn't even flinch. Another mortar whistle. Rios slammed down again, teeth gritted as the valley shuddered. "Sir, we have to move," someone shouted. "They're bracketing us." "Move where?" Rios snapped. "We step off this berm where—" He never finished the sentence. The machine gun on the ridge coughed mid-burst, the line of tracers suddenly swinging away from the truck. A half-second later, the gun spat one last ill-aimed lick of fire into the sky and went silent. The muzzle flash simply gone. Rios blinked. Did they? Before he could process it, another set of shots cracked across the valley, a different sound entirely. Not the heavy, chopping roar of the machine gun. This was a flat, disciplined pop, 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 3 rounds in tight succession. On a higher ledge above the first, a man with a tube on his shoulder, a rocket jerked backward. The rocket slipped from his grasp and clattered off the rocks. One more shot, and the man arched, then toppled, pinwheeling down the slope in a shower of powder. The rocket skidded to rest against a boulder and did not detonate. Rios realized he'd been holding his breath. "Where the hell did that come from?" the sergeant whispered. Gunfire chattered from another enemy position, seeking the source of the disruption. They sent a spray up toward the higher ridge line, but there was no obvious target. Rios turned his head, eyes scanning the jagged skyline. Wind whipped snow into slender banners off the peaks. For a second, there was nothing but rock and white and endless cold. Then he saw it, a tiny movement on an outcrop much higher than any of the ambush nests. Just a silhouette, a figure lying prone against the stone, barely a ridge of darker color against the snow. It shifted once, a subtle scoot of shoulders as if adjusting a rifle, and then sank even flatter until it vanished from his unaided eye. He thumbed his radio again on reflex. "Unknown overwatch. This is Talon 6, identify." Static, and the low hum answered, rolling in like a wave. He almost let go. Then something flickered at the edge of the noise. 2 mills, left, third rock from the calm female voice, clipped and professional, cutting through for only a heartbeat before the interference swallowed it again. Rios stared at the handset. It could have been a ghost in the static, a trick of his own fried nerves. But up on the ridge, another enemy gun swiveled, getting ready to fire, and that same precise crack sounded. 2 shots. The gun jerked, went quiet. Snow puffed around where the enemy had been. "Did you hear that?" The radio operator, lying a few meters away, croaked. His headset hung lopsided around his neck, one side shattered. "Sir, did you hear some woman?" "Shut up and stay low," the sergeant snapped, but there was no real heat in it. Just fear trying to sound like anger. At Rios's elbow, a wounded soldier with a bandage hastily wrapped around his thigh lifted his head weakly. His face was the gray of late ash. Who's up there?" he whispered. "None of ours," another soldier answered, voice rough. "Our snipers are at base kilo. They told us that this morning." The valley seemed to hesitate for a second. Enemy fire slackened, not stopped, but more sporadic as shots probed the high ridge. Mortar rounds paused, as if the spotter were reassessing. Somewhere, someone was redrawing the map of this fight, because an unseen player had just stepped onto the board. Rios squinted up into the snow-laced wind, trying to catch another glimpse of that outcrop. He saw only rock and white. "Whoever she is," he muttered, mostly to himself, "keep doing it." Another mortar whined, closer this time, pelting them with ice shards when it landed. Men cursed, ducked deeper. The jammed radio hissed in his hand, useless and yet, now, a lifeline to the unknown. They were still in the kill box, still surrounded, still without a way out. But somewhere above all that gunfire and falling snow, an invisible rifle was turning pieces of the enemy position to silence, one shot at a time. This, he knew without understanding how, was not where the day had begun. And before it was over, the story of how a rookie medic had gotten to that impossible vantage point would pass into the kind of whispered outpost legend that never made it into official reports. Hours earlier, the mountains had looked almost gentle. Morning light bounced off the snowfields, bright enough to make eyes water, even behind goggles. The remote outpost sat like a toy fort on a carved shelf of rock, walls of stacked HESCO bastions, and sandbags interrupting the sweep of white. Generator noise hummed under everything, a bass note beneath the crisp, thin air. Corporal Harper sat on a wooden crate inside the aid station. Her world narrowed to the open medical pack on her lap. Gloved fingers moved with practiced speed and care, checking each item by touch and sight. Tourniquets, rubber bands snug and coiled. She flipped one, tested the buckle. Good. Pressure dressings, vacuum-packed, edges lined up like small bricks. Chest seals, smooth and cold under her fingertips. Morphine syrettes secured in their pouch. Caps on, labels legible. "Doc, you gonna marry that bag, or what?" A voice called from the doorway. She looked up. Private Con leaned against the frame, hands stuffed in his pockets, a lopsided grin on his face. The radio headset around his neck crackled softly with distant chatter from other units in the sector. "It's the only thing around here that listens to me," Harper said, closing the flap and tightening the strap. "That's because it doesn't know better." Con sauntered in, nudging an empty coffee can with his boot. Convoy steps in, what, 30? "You know Rios is going to freak if you're not strapped into the truck 5 minutes ago." "I know," she said. "Just finishing checks." He squinted at the pack. "Is that more stuff?" "Harper, you know you're not supposed to add weight without." "It's within the limit," she interrupted, sliding a small, flat case into an outer pouch and clipping it. "Relax." He stepped closer, tapping the pouch in question. "What is that, anyway? Extra bandages? A secret stash of cookies?" "Please say cookies." She hesitated, then unzipped an inch. Inside, nested in foam, were a compact spotting scope, a small folding range card, and a lens cloth. Not standard issue for her role. Not forbidden, either if she could carry it. "Optics," she said, "for looking at things." "I have a radio," Con said. "I can ask people what's over the hill." "And what if your radio doesn't work?" Harper asked, zipping the pouch fully. She slung the pack over her shoulder, testing the weight. "You're supposed to check your load, too, you know. When was the last time you changed your handset battery?" Con made a face. "Doc, you graduated top of your medic class, not comms. Leave the radios to the pros." "Pros who keep their gear charged," she muttered. He laughed and held up his hands, backing toward the door. Fine. Come on. They're about to talk us through today's scenic bus tour." Outside, the air hit her like a clean slap. Breath plumed in front of her, lingering in the stillness. The base's small parade ground had been converted into a makeshift briefing spot, a portable whiteboard propped up on ammo crates. A laminated topographical map was pinned to it under clear plastic, lines and symbols dense enough to make most people's eyes cross. Harper stepped closer, ignoring the jokes and chatter around her. The map pulled at her attention, as maps always did. She traced the route marked in yellow, from their outpost, along the Ridgeline Road, down into the valley marked Talon Cut, then up again to a relay site labeled RS3. Contour lines crowded tight around the valley. Steep walls. Limited options. Lieutenant Rios stood at the front, pen in hand, talking through the mission in his calm, instructive tone. "Convoy escort. In and out before the storm moves in. We're taking a mobile comms and sensor package to RS3. Once it's online, Command gets real-time data on the entire southern sector. Enemy movement, radio traffic, the works. It's a big deal, apparently." A few chuckles rolled through the group. Rios pointed his pen at the map. "We've had low-level contact in the region, but nothing direct against convoys in this area. We'll have air on call if needed. Expect small arms fire, maybe a pot shot from a hillbilly with an RPG. We'll discourage as required." "Sir," someone asked, "what about comms blackout in the valley? Those ridges look like they'll shadow the radios." "We have satellite uplink in the comms truck," Rios answered. "We'll maintain link with the outpost and hammer flight. Worst case, we have dead spots for a minute or two. No one goes hero without talking to me first. This is routine. We stay disciplined. We're back before chow." Harper raised her hand. Rios nodded, eyes scanning down her file in his mind as if reading it off a screen. Top of combat medicine, passable in weapons. Good under simulated pressure. New to the mountain. "Sir," she said, tapping a glove knuckle lightly against the map's laminated surface where the valley narrowed. If we lose link here and here, how are we marking for extraction? Any contingency? The convoy route's been run 3 times in the last month, Rios said. No issues. Redundant systems on the truck. If we lost everything, which we're not, Hammer still has pre-planned spin points. They know the valley. This is low risk. Her gaze flicked to the corner of the map. Someone had drawn a storm front icon. Estimated arrival time later that afternoon. Grayed area creeping over the hills. Understood, she said, though the knot in her stomach didn't ease. After the briefing, she stepped out beyond the HESCO perimeter while others drifted toward the motor pool. The snow outside the walls stretched away pure and almost untouched, broken only by the occasional rock and scrub. It should have felt peaceful. Instead, it felt watched. She scanned the slope above the base. There, faint but distinct, were wide, parallel lines cut into a section of snow that should have been virgin. Ski tracks, she thought. Not from their guys. The base training runs were in the bowl on the other side. She followed the tracks with her eyes. They curved toward a notch in the ridge, then vanished where the wind had filled them in. Higher up, a patch of snow looked wrong. Lumpy, like a tarp had been laid down and then covered with a hasty layer of powder. A curved bump, almost the shape of a buried box. Harper, Sergeant Morales' voice carried from inside the perimeter. You planning to hike to the objective or ride in the truck like a civilized human? She turned back. Morales stood on the wall, chin tucked into his collar, arms folded. Just getting a feel for the terrain, Sarge, she called. That's what maps are for, he said. You saving the world with your eyeballs or packing bandages today? Both, if it's all the same to you. Morales snorted. Just don't get cute. You stick to your lane, document. We get hit. I need you on the ground, not playing scout. Harper nodded, but her gaze slid once more to the strange bulge on the ridge. Her fingers itched for the optics she'd just packed. She thought of pulling them out, taking a closer look. Then Khan's voice ricocheted from the motor pool. Doc, you gotta see which death trap we got today. Front seat or back with the cargo. She let the moment go, turning away. The mountains kept their secrets. In the motor pool, 6 vehicles idled in a ragged line, exhaust curling in the cold. 1 armored scout at the front, another at the rear, 3 cargo trucks in between, and in the center, the star of the show, a boxy, heavily insulated comms truck with a bundled antenna array folded against its roof like a sleeping insect. Harper climbed into the back of the second cargo truck, sliding into a seat on the inward-facing bench. Her pack went at her feet, straps around her boots so it wouldn't slide. She tapped the worn photograph tucked into the band of her helmet, a picture of her and another medic trainee, laughing in some forgotten barracks hallway. The other medic had a jagged scar along his forearm now, courtesy of a live-fire exercise that had gone sideways. A fragment she should have caught, a moment she should have anticipated. He told her it wasn't her fault. She still woke up some nights with the clang of metal and his stunned eyes burned behind her eyelids. Her job was to keep people alive, to fix damage, not to create it. Hey, Morales thumped the side of the truck with a gloved fist. You good? Good, Sarge, she said. Vitals checked. Equipment checked. We'll be fine. That's my line, he said, then grunted and moved on. The convoy rolled out a few minutes later, tires crunching over ice. Harper watched the base fall away through the small armored window, the walls shrinking, the antenna masts dipping below the ridgeline. The mountains folded around them. The sky was a hard, clear blue, but on the horizon, a veil of gray hinted at the storm creeping closer. As they approached the valley marked Talon cut on the map, Harper found herself watching the ridge line more than the road. The small window gave her a restricted slice of world. White slopes, dark rock ribs, occasional spindly trees clinging to the sides. Her eyes caught on anything irregular. A straight line where there should have been none, a shadow that didn't match its surroundings. And then she saw it, just once, and then it was gone. A tiny flash on a far slope, high above the valley mouth. Glass catching the sun, maybe, or metal shifting. Her hand went instinctively to the optics pouch, fingers curling around the zipper. She did not pull them out. The truck bounced, jolting her back in her seat. Khan, sitting opposite, grinned around a stick of gum, as if they were on a long, boring bus ride, rather than threading a route where every bend might hide a gun. "Relax, Doc," he said. "We'll be back in time for dinner. You can yell at me about my radio battery after." The valley swallowed them. The engine's rumble grew louder as it bounced between the walls. Harper watched the signal bars on Khan's handset drop from full to half as they slid into the shadow of the ridges. She made a mental note. "Dead spot starts here." "That's a little scratchy," Khan muttered, fiddling with his dials. "But I still got them." Harper shifted her boots, feeling the weight of the extra optics, the familiar drag of the trauma bag. She breathed slow, in and out, counting to 5, then 6. Casualty drills flickered through her mind like flashcards. Airway, breathing, circulation, catastrophic hemorrhage first, tourniquet high and tight. The first wrong thing was small. A voice on Khan's headset cut out mid-sentence, replaced with a sound like distant thunder layered under static. Khan frowned, tapped the set. "Say again, Hammer." Harper watched his face change from mild annoyance to confusion. "Getting a little noise," he said. "Probably bouncing here. They'll clear it up." She felt the hum in the air, a vibration almost below hearing. It set her teeth on edge. "Maybe we should," she started. The world blew apart before she finished. There was no warning, no distant thump of launch, no whistle. The lead vehicle simply vanished in a boil of white and black. The blast crushed inward against the truck around her, throwing her sideways into Khan, the two of them slamming into the bench. Ears went to ringing silence. Vision snapped off and on like a strobe. Her body reacted before her thoughts did. She curled protectively around the trauma bag, arms clamped tight, as the driver hit the brakes and the truck slewed. Steel screamed against rock. Another explosion, behind them this time, sharp, directed, threw a second shockwave up the valley. When the vehicle shuddered to a stop, someone was shouting. Maybe her. Maybe everyone. "Out!" Morales' voice cut through the ringing. "Out! Out! Out!" Harper grabbed the trauma bag and staggered toward the rear hatch. The door yanked open. Cold slammed in, bringing smoke and the metallic tang of exploded ordnance. Outside, the air looked wrong. Snow boiled in slow motion, mixed with black grime and pieces of things she refused to identify yet. The lead vehicle was a twisted sculpture of metal and fire, its front end peeled back like the petals of charred flower. The last truck lay canted in the snowbank behind them, rear shattered, wheels spinning uselessly. The road between was a corridor of shock and chaos. Gunfire raked the convoy from above. Harper saw the white cliffs alive with muzzle flashes, lines of fire intersecting like a deadly crosshatch over the road. Bullets punched into truck bodies, sprayed glass, chewed chunks from wooden crates. She dropped behind the nearest wool well, breath coming in short, sharp bursts. Her brain wanted to lock onto the sight of a body half under the front axle, legs twitching. Training shoved that image aside. Find cover, then casualties. "Move, Doc." Morales slid in beside her, bullets snapping overhead. "We got wounded." "I see them," she shouted. He raised his rifle, fired up into the ridge, not to hit anything, just to make the enemy duck for a heartbeat. "Now's your heartbeat. Go!" She went. Snow grabbed at her boots as she sprinted across the gap between vehicles. Movement on the ridge brought another clatter of fire. She dove, sliding the last 2 meters to tumble behind a low drift on the other side. A figure lay crumpled there, gasping like a landed fish, gloved hands pressing at a red stain blooming through his thigh. Harper dropped to her knees, trauma bag already unzipping. "I got you," she said. "Stay with me." "What's your name?" "Torres," he choked. "Ma'am, It's Harper. Don't call me ma'am. You're going to swear at me instead." "Okay." She slid her fingers under his hands, felt the hot wash of blood. "Hi, deep wound. Arterial. Tourniquet. High and tight." She snatched the strap, looped it, cranked. Torres screamed, then bit it off, eyes watering. She saw his chest still rising, the air steaming in the cold. Gunfire and the heavy chop of a machine gun roared over them. The comms truck, 20 meters away, sat in the center of storm. Bullets hammered its side, specifically clustered around the antenna housing and the rear doors. They want it, she realized. They're aiming for the doors, the equipment, not just to destroy it. To get inside, Khan slid behind the drift, skidding on one knee. Blood streaked his cheek, but he looked more offended than hurt. His radio headset hung, cable sparking. "Radio's gone," he said, tossing the useless handset aside. "Sir can't reach anyone." "Try the backup," she said automatically, fingers still on Torres's tourniquet. "Backup's dead too," Khan said. "It's all brick." Above them, a mortar wickered. The round landed close enough to shower them with snow and gravel. Harper ducked, curling protectively over Torres. She felt impacts in the drift as shrapnel peppered the far side. Another round, then another, walking up the road in neat, disciplined steps. Each one closer. "Someone spotting," she gasped, looking up. "They're watching where we move, then adjusting." "How can you tell?" Khan said, wiping at his cheek. "Timing." She pointed with a bloody glove. "We move." 10 seconds later, a round lands there. Again and again. "That's not random." Khan stared at her, then at the ridges. From their position, all he could see was a bewildering patchwork of rock and snow. "We got more wounded," Morales shouted from the other side of the truck. "Harper, I need you on the sergeant. He's hit bad." She tightened Torres's tourniquet one more notch, handed him a rolled bandage. "Press on this. Don't pass out. If you pass out, I have to work harder, and I'm lazy." He tried to grin. It came out as a grimace. "Yes, document." She moved, crawling low, using the truck's bulk as cover. Rios's voice rose over the gunfire, shouting orders, trying to impose some kind of structure on the chaos. "First squad, suppress North Ridge. Second squad, focus on that machine gun on the south. Keep your heads down." He clutched his radio like a relic, thumb pressed to the transmit switch, knowing it wasn't helping but unable to stop. "Outpost, this is Talon 6. We are." The words drowned again in that thrumming interference. A deliberate blanket, not natural. Harper reached the sergeant and sucked in a sharp breath. Morales knelt over him, hands already red. The sergeant lay on his back, face pale, snow clinging to his lashes. Dark patches stained his thigh and shoulder, the rounds having found soft spots despite his armor. "I got his airway," Morales said. "He's breathing, bleeding like a stuck pig." "I'll take it," Harper said, pushing in. "You cover." She went to work, glove movements automatic. Cut cloth, find the wounds, plug the holes. Shoulder first, packing gauze deep to chase the bleeding. Leg next. Tourniquet. Morales provided a wall of bulk and rifle above her, firing in disciplined bursts whenever an enemy muzzle dared show. As she worked, she kept glancing up the slope. Her medic brain counted pulses and respiration rates. Another part of her, quieter, less practiced, but no less sharp, tracked where the mortars were landing, how often, how they shifted when someone tried to move a truck or drag a casualty. Every adjustment corresponded to a new position. Every new position corresponded to someone seeing them. That patch of disturbed snow above the valley flashed in her mind. The berry shape near the ridge outside the outpost. Weeks of preparation, maybe, ski tracks, hidden equipment. They didn't just stumble into this, she thought. They built it. Rios slid in beside them, helmet banded with frost, eyes hard. "How bad?" He barked, nodding at the sergeant. "Serious but stable if we get him out," she said. "If we don't, he'll bleed out when the tourniquet gives. And if we move him now..." She glanced back at the road. Mortars had fallen in a pattern she could almost predict. "We'll draw fire. They've got an angle we don't. There's an overwatch up there somewhere. And a jammer. Same location, probably." "Doc," Rios said, "with respect, your job is blood, not ballistics." "They're the same today," she said. "Look," she pointed with a bloody finger, tracing an imaginary line from their position up to a shelf halfway up the ridge. "If you had a spotter there and a jammer, you could see the whole valley and Friar signals. You'd aim at the comms truck first. You'd time your mortar fire to punish anyone who tried to move. That's exactly what they're doing." Rios stared at the shelf, seeing only rock. But he trusted patterns. He'd learned in other deserts, other mountains, that people who noticed patterns saved lives. Incoming, someone screamed. They dove back as another mortar round landed dangerously close. The shockwave punched through Harper's sternum. Snow and gravel rained down. The sergeant coughed, blood flecking his lips. "We can't sit here," Rios said hoarsely. "We can't move forward. The lead truck's blocking the road. We can't reverse. The rear's out. We're stuck. We're running low on ammo, and if Hammer can't hear us, they're not flying into this valley blind." "I know," Harper said. "Options. Take out the overwatch," she said. "Kill the spotter and the jammer. Restore comms." Rios gave a short, humorless laugh. "That's a good plan. Love that plan. Tell me who does it and how they get up there." Harper looked at the ridge again, this time tracing the faint lines she remembered from outside the outpost. Ski tracks. Packed routes. She saw a possible path where the snow folded into ledges and narrow shelves. "I can," she said. Rios's head snapped toward her. "You're the medic. I know these slopes better than anyone here," she said. "I've been staring at them for weeks. I know where those tracks lead. I'm lighter. I can move faster. And I can patch myself if I get clipped." Morales rounded on her. "Absolutely not. You're not climbing out there with a rifle. We need you here. You need someone up there more," she said, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. "We're going to die here, Sergeant. All of us. Unless somebody makes them blind." Another mortar screamed overhead. Everyone flinched, bodies ducking instinctively. The blast crashed somewhere farther down the line, followed by a howl of pain. Harper met Rios's eyes. He saw fear there, yes, but also something else. Calculation. Not panic. Not a glory-seeking shine. Just a medic who had realized that the only way to keep bandaging bodies was to stop them from being torn open in the first place. He looked around. His platoon's fire had slackened, men and women conserving rounds. A few rifles already lay empty, their owners clutching remaining magazines like gold. The valley walls loomed higher with every second. "Sir," Khan shouted, sliding in on his belly, eyes wild. "I keep trying to raise Hammer. Nothing. It's like the sky's turned off." Rios closed his eyes for half a beat. There were regulations. There were manuals. None of them had a chapter titled, "When your convoy is in a mathematically perfect kill zone and only your medic has a plan." "Gear up," he said to Harper. His voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. "You take a rifle, some extra mags. You take your optics. You take your radio, even if it's mostly dead, in case you get one window through the jamming. You go quiet. You find that spotter, that jammer, whatever's up there, and you break it. You do not engage anything you don't have to." Morales sputtered. "Sir, this is an order, Sergeant," Rios snapped. Then, softer to Harper, "You understand what you're asking to do." She thought of the photo in her helmet band, of the scar on her friend's arm, of waking up in the night with the taste of failure in her mouth. "I understand," she said. "If I stay here, I watch all of you die. If I go, maybe you live." Morales swore, low and vicious, then shrugged off an ammo bandolier and shoved it at her. "Then take my rounds," he growled, "and don't make me regret every time I yelled at you for overpacking." Khan slid his rifle over, jaw clenched. "I'll keep hitting the net," he said. "You give me anything, any crackle, I'll be listening." Harper slung the rifle, adjusted the sling until it sat right across her chest. The weight felt wrong and right at the same time. She traded one of her 4 bags for 2 more magazines, jamming them into her vest. The trauma bag she kept, cinching it tight. She checked the sergeant one more time. His pulse was thready but present. She squeezed his shoulder. "I'll be back," she said. He tried to smile. "You better. I got questions about the bill." Morales fired a burst overhead, then tossed a smoke grenade into the road. It hissed, belching thick white smoke that quickly mingled with the blowing snow. "On my mark," Rio shouted. "Everyone give her all the cover you got left." Harper took a breath, so deep it hurt. Then she slid like a swimmer off a starting block, sprinting under the rising veil of smoke toward the base of the ridge. Gunfire chased her, snapping at her heels. Bullets sparked off rock around her, stinging her cheeks with ricochets. She dove behind an ice-crusted boulder, heart hammering. The ridge loomed above, a steep, unforgiving face. Up there somewhere, beyond sight, a small cabin half buried in snow waited, humming with stolen electricity, feeding a jammer that cloaked the skies and an eye that guided mortars. Up there, the fate of the platoon hung on the shoulders of a rookie medic who had been told all morning to stick to her lane. She dug her hands into the snow and began to climb. The slope felt vertical under her boots. She followed the faint impressions of old ski tracks, packed just enough to give her purchase. Snow slid away in sheets when she misstepped, threatening to carry her back down. The wind up here tasted sharper, the valley noise damped by the angle of the rock. Gunfire became a distant, uneven drum. Halfway up, a burst of rounds chewed the snow above her head, showering her with ice chips. She flattened against the rock, breath frozen in her chest. Someone on the ridge had spotted a flicker of movement on the slope. They didn't know what it was yet. She planned to keep it that way. Her radio crackled at her hip, just a ghost of sound, but there. She keyed the transmit for a half-second, not trusting words, just marking that she was improbably still alive. The hum of the jammer grew clearer now that she listened for it. Not audible in a conventional way, but a sense of pressure in the air, strongest when she turned her head a certain direction. She used it like a compass, edging along a narrow ledge until she saw it. A rough cabin, half buried where the ridge flared outward, smoke from a small exhaust vent lazily curling away, instantly torn flat by the wind. A thin, unnatural tree stood near it. No, not a tree, a disguised antenna, bark painted on, wires hidden in the trunk. Through her compact scope, she saw them. One man with a spotting scope, his face pressed to the eyepiece as he spoke into a throat mic. Another hunched over a humming metal box connected to a small generator, eyes on a readout that Harper couldn't see. Inside the cabin, just visible through a gap in the door, another silhouette moved slowly, shoulders hunched, posture different, less military. A local force to help? A captured worker? Her medic brain recoiled at the idea of simply spraying the cabin with bullets. Her platoon's lives weighed on one side of the scale. An unseen, possibly innocent person weighed on the other. Her palm tingled. She pulled off one glove, took out a sterile blade from her kit, and sliced a quick line across the heel of her hand. Blood welled up, hot against the cold. She squeezed, letting droplets fall on the rock and snow. Then she crawled along the ledge, dragging the bleeding hand along one path before doubling back, leaving a false trail. The spotter turned, frowning. He said something to the jammer operator, who looked up, eyes narrowing at the streaks on the snow. They both scanned downslope, away from where she actually lay. The spotter slung his rifle and moved to investigate the wounded trail, following it along the wrong path. Harper inched forward toward a rock outcrop above the cabin, the impossible angle she needed. Below, the valley lay spread out like a map. A burning lead truck, small figures crawling behind meager cover, bursts of fire marking enemy positions. Her heart pounded. Her hand throbbed. The rifle felt heavy and foreign, and exactly right as she settled into a prone position, braced elbows on cold stone. The overwatch had hunted them long enough. Now it was her turn. From here, she could see almost everything. The valley unfurled beneath her like a diagram etched in smoke and blood. The road, the trucks, the shivering forms of her platoon behind their fragile berm. Enemy positions crouched in pockets of rock and snow, their muzzle flashes blinking like angry eyes. She forced herself to breathe slowly, to let the sights move with her heartbeat and not against it. 1, 2, 3, in, out. Her mind built a list without conscious effort. First, the mortar spotter. Without him, the rounds would scatter. Then the jammer, to peel back the sky. Then the sniper on the western ridge, who'd been punishing every attempt to move. Then the RPG team near the comms truck. Then the machine gun anchoring the kill zone. Force multipliers first. Always. The ones that made everyone else more lethal. She found the spotter again through her scope, halfway between the cabin and the ledge, eyes on the false blood trail. He crouched, gloved hand touching the snow, gaze following the line she'd painted with her own palm. He spoke into his mic, no doubt directing someone's attention to the wounded climber he thought he'd find. Her fingers settled on the trigger. The shot surprised her the way it was supposed to. The recoil nudged her shoulder. Through the glass, she saw the spotter jerk, an expression of confusion rippling across his face before his legs went out. He folded into the snow, hands twitching once, then still. Below, the mortar fire stuttered. One round already in flight landed wide, far from any useful target. The next did not come. Harper shifted slightly, bringing the jammer operator into view. He had frozen when the shot rang out, head turning toward where his partner had fallen. His hands hovered over the device, uncertain. She aimed not at his chest, but at the small generator powering the box. A shot to the fuel line, another to a panel of exposed wiring. Sparks flew. The hum stuttered, dropped in pitch, then died with a sullen cough of smoke. The operator jerked back, hand to his cheek where a fragment of metal had nicked him. Down in the valley, Khan's radio shrieked back to life. For a glorious 3 seconds, the net was clear. Rios pounced. "Hammer flight, this is Talon 6, he barked. Pinned in Talon cut, heavy contact, both ridges, comms previously jammed. Request immediate air. Marking targets with smoke when on station. Say position. Alone 6, Hammer 1. We copy you now, intermittent. Say again, grid." The reply was ragged, chopped by residual noise, but it was there. A thread reconnected. Harper didn't have time to savor it. Movement on the western ridge drew her attention. The enemy sniper she'd noted, long barrel, careful muzzle discipline, had paused his harassment fire and was now scanning, clearly hunting for the source of the shots that had cut down his comrades. She watched him through her scope, tracing the line of his eye, the way his rifle swept. When he stopped, sight settling in her general direction, she exhaled and fired. His scope flashed as her round struck it, shattering glass. Her second shot walked in, catching him just below the chin strap. His body slumped backward, head snapping. 3, she whispered, keeping count because numbers were something she could control. On the road, the RPG team near the comms truck scrambled to set up another shot. They had seen the lead and rear vehicles destroyed by explosives. They wanted the prize in the middle. One man hefted the launcher, rocket already seated, aiming at the truck's rear doors. Harper pivoted, the world narrowing to the thin rectangle of her sight picture. Wind nudged the barrel. She adjusted. The man turned slightly, presenting a better angle. She squeezed. The round hit him in the shoulder instead of center mass, but it was enough. He spun, losing his grip. The RPG tube dipped, the rocket launching at an angle, spiraling off to detonate against an empty patch of hillside with a dirty blossom of flame. The nearby enemy fighters flinched and ducked, instincts overriding training. On the eastern ridge, a crew-served machine gun pounded rounds into the central segment of the road, keeping Rios's people pinned. Harper moved to them next. The assistant gunner fed belt into the weapon, hunched, eyes on the links. The main gunner focused on the sights. She put a round through the feeder's side first. He arched, hands spasming on the belt, jamming it. The gunner swore, slapped the side of the weapon, bending low to clear the feed. Harper took her time, adjusted half an inch, and sent another shot. The gunner sagged over the weapon, dead weight slamming it into silence. Down below, a squad took the hint. Morales gestured wildly, shouting something Harper couldn't hear. 2 soldiers leapt from behind cover, hauling a wounded comrade between them as they sprinted to a slightly deeper ditch. Without the machine gun's bark, the gap felt almost safe. It wasn't, of course. It only felt that way because the enemy had finally realized something was very wrong. For a few seconds, the valley held its breath. Then the pattern of fire changed. Instead of sweeping the road, the shots focused higher up into the rocks and ledges near where Harper lay. "They know," she murmured. She crawled sideways as bullets chewed the stone she'd been resting against. Chips nicked her cheek. One slug rattled off her helmet, ringing her ears. On another outcrop, she saw 2 figures detach from the main body of enemy fighters, clipping ropes to their harnesses. Climbers. They moved with practiced ease, swinging down and then up along the slope, using holds she hadn't even seen. They weren't coming for the convoy. They were coming for her. A low buzzing joined the wind. She looked up and saw a small drone lifting from a hidden nook rotors biting the thin air, camera eye glinting. It rose in a lazy spiral, then began to sweep along the ridge, hunting for the telltale flash of her muzzle. "Not good," she said softly. She slid back from the edge, heart pounding faster now. Fear was a useful thing if you let it sharpen instead of blunt. She let it edge her thoughts, not overwhelm them. She shifted along the ledge, keeping low, then stole a look down the slope where the nearest climbing team advanced. Their rope line ran up to an anchor hammered into an ice shelf. A shelf with hairline cracks. She could see, even from here, the structure compromised by sun and wind. She steadied the rifle, took 2 quick shots at the rock around the anchor. Ice shattered. The anchor popped free. The climbing line jerked, taut for a heartbeat, then whipped loose. The lead climber scrabbled desperately, crampons clawing at thin holds, before gravity won. He tumbled, bouncing off the slope. His partner braked, anchoring himself lower down, saving his own life but ending the attempt to reach her from that direction. The drone buzzed closer, sensing sounds, perhaps thermal signatures. Harper flattened, then rolled into the shadow of a boulder. When the drone passed between her and the rock face, she rose just enough to get the rifle up and fired a single shot. The small machine shuddered, rotors stuttering, then spiraled down into the snow, its eye dark. Without spotter, without jammer, without drone, the enemy had lost its God's eye view. That was the moment Rios had been waiting for. Talon elements. This is 6. His voice crackled over the net, stronger now. We have an angel on the ridge. We move on our mark. First squad, bound to the rear of the comms truck. Second squad, cover. Third, keep pressure on the left ridge. We're pushing toward extraction point Bravo. Ammo discipline, short bursts, no hero fire. Morales answered with a wordless roar, hauling another wounded soldier over his shoulder as he ran. Bullets still flew, but without coordination. Some fighters fired at the ridge, some at the road, some at phantom shadows. Hammer 1, Talon 6, Rio said. Do you see our valley? Affirm, came the reply. We have your general location. Jamming was heavy. We're moving to support. Mark enemy concentration, if able. Harper's hand went to the smoke grenade hanging from her vest. She pulled the pin, waited 2 seconds, then lobbed it into a knot of enemy positions on the middle ridge, where she'd seen not only shooters, but a figure in heavier gear, flanked by 2 bodyguards, barking orders and gesturing. The grenade bounced, rolled, then began to spew thick colored smoke, impossible to ignore against the white. Mark on colored smoke, she heard Khan relay. Be advised, friendly overwatch above that cluster. Copy, Talon. Hammer inbound. Stay low. The aircraft came in as a smudge of motion above the valley mouth, then grew into a roaring shape. Harper saw its nose dip, weapons lining up. She pressed herself flat, eyes squeezed shut as the first run raked the marked ridge with a storm of rounds and rockets. The explosions rolled up the rock, tearing away positions she hadn't even clocked. When she dared look again, the ridge was a ragged scar of smoking holes and scattered bodies. The enemy that remained scrambled to reposition, their once sleek ambush now a mess of panicked movements. On the far side, near the rear of their lines, she saw him, the commander. He wore a heavier coat, a distinctive band of color tied around his arm. He carried a handheld radio, shouting into it, trying to impose order. He was, she realized, the last thread holding the whole tapestry together. She tracked him through her scope, ignoring easier targets. Several times, she nearly took shots at fighters who raised weapons toward Morales or Khan. Each time, she forced herself to hold, to adjust, to wait until the commander stepped clear of cover. He paused on a rocky spur, turning, gesturing, face contorted in anger. His mouth was open mid-curse. Harper exhaled, the breath fogging her view for a heartbeat. When it cleared, her crosshairs were steady on his chest. She squeezed. The round struck him just below the collarbone. His body jerked. The radio tumbled from his hand, bouncing once, twice, then disappearing into the snow. He pitched backward, sliding a short distance before coming to rest against a rock. All across the valley, enemy fire faltered. What had been a coordinated storm became an uneven drizzle. Some fighters stayed frozen, unsure what to do without orders. Others broke, slipping away along the ridge, vanishing into the folds of the mountain. "Commander's down," Harper murmured to no one. "You're done." Rios saw the change. He felt it in the way rounds stopped targeting specific positions and started going wild. In the way the constant mortar punctuation fell silent. "Now," he shouted, "everything you've got. We move to the birds. We move now." The convoy, what remained of it, began to creep along the road, engines groaning. Troops used the trucks as mobile walls, moving in jagged leaps, dragging the wounded, shouting encouragement at one another. Harper shadowed them from above, picking off any enemy foolish enough to present a clear threat. Near the far end of the valley, a lone fighter shouldered a rocket launcher, desperation overriding discipline. He aimed not at a vehicle, but at the densest cluster of fleeing soldiers. Harper's scope found him just as he fired. She knew she would never hit the rocket mid-flight at this angle. Instead, she shifted half a meter up and left, putting her round into the brittle overhang of rock above him. The bullet shattered it. A curtain of snow and stone dropped, engulfing the shooter. The rocket's tail flashed and veered, its trajectory spoiled. It arced away in a drunken line and blew harmlessly against an empty slope. Ahead, the extraction helicopter swept in low, rotors throwing up twin spirals of snow. Its side door gaped open, crew leaning out, weapons ready to deter any last-ditch attack. Khan's voice crackled over the net. "Hammer, this is Talon. LZ marked and hot. We're coming in with wounded." The rest was lost in the roar as the bird flared and settled, skids biting into the road. Rios waved his arms, shepherding people toward it in carefully controlled chaos. From her perch, Harper watched them go, chest heaving, sweat cold under her armor. She felt very far away and yet tied to every one of them by invisible lines. As the last soldier scrambled aboard and the helicopter lifted, she allowed herself to sag against the rock. Her arms shook. Her cut palm throbbed. The blood crusted in her glove. The rifle felt suddenly heavy. Down below, the valley that had been a kill box was now a graveyard of wrecked metal and bodies, friendly and enemy alike. Smoke stained the white, twisting upward into the widening gray smear of the incoming storm. Much later, back at the outpost, the snow fell in a gentler, muffling curtain. Harper moved between cots, the aid station warmer now, lit with yellow lamps. The air smelled of antiseptic, sweat, and the metallic tang of blood. Men and women lay under blankets for lines snaking to their arms, monitors beeping soft, steady rhythms. She checked a bandage on Torres's thigh, pressing lightly. He hissed but stayed with her, eyes focused. "You're not allowed to die," she told him. "I promised you swearing, and you haven't sworn nearly enough at me." He gave her a weak grin, saving it for later. "Good." She moved on to Morales, whose shoulder was immobilized in a sling, his other hand holding a cup of something hot. He scowled as she adjusted his dressings, but when she met his eyes, there was a quiet, grudging respect there that hadn't been before. In the far corner, a bed lay empty. The sergeant who'd bled on the roadside earlier hadn't made it past the second hour. Harper's chest tightened when she glanced that way, a familiar hollow ache. Even extraordinary days didn't erase the limits of what flesh and blood could take. Rios appeared in the doorway, the snow still dusting his shoulders. His eyes swept the room, counting, checking. Then he jerked his chin toward the makeshift briefing room next door. "Doc," he said, "got a minute?" She wiped her hands, stripped off stained gloves, and followed him. Inside, a larger map now covered the table, weighted at the corners with rocks. Beside it lay a packet of papers and a few small pieces of captured gear. Chunks of the jammer, the drone's cracked casing, a rescued notebook with neat handwriting in a language she only half recognized. An intelligence officer she'd never met before stood at the far side, sleeves rolled, hair still plastered damp with melted snow. He held a pen like a pointer, tapping at different spots on the map. "As best we can tell," he was saying, "they've been watching our upgrades for weeks. Recon teams identified when the mobile relay was due to move. They picked the valley because it gave them maximum control, terrain, line of sight, jamming effectiveness. The goal wasn't just to smoke your platoon. They wanted the truck intact. What? Rios asked, though he could guess. The intel officer tapped the small, scorched metal block on the table. These units handle encryption for half the sector. If they captured one undamaged, they might have been able to spoof our signals. Imagine them posing as our units, feeding false information, calling off support. Within days, Command wouldn't trust anything they heard. We'd be operating blind while they moved forces wherever they wanted. Harper stared at the metal, feeling a cold trickle down her spine. She'd thought about the platoon. She hadn't thought about the wider web. So it wasn't just about us, she said. It's always about more than the people on the ground, the intel officer said, not unkindly. But today, the people on the ground made sure the bigger plan failed. He looked at her fully for the first time, eyes narrowing slightly, as if he were reconciling the name on a report with the person in front of him. You're Corporal Harper. Yes, sir. He tapped a folder. I've read the preliminary after-action reports. Medic, top of your class in trauma. Marksmanship scores adequate. He raised an eyebrow. And yet, according to your lieutenant and half the survivors down there, you climbed into a hot zone, neutralized a spotter, a jammer, an enemy sniper, an RPG team, a machine gun nest, a drone, a climbing squad, and the opposing commander. You did this while wounded and with no prior designation as a marksman. Do you have any comment on that? Harper felt heat rise in her face. She stared at a scuff on the floor. I did what I had to, she said, to keep my patients alive. By creating more patients, Rios muttered, but there was a flicker of humor in it. Mostly on the other side. She met the intel officer's gaze. Sir, I'm still a medic. I don't want this, she gestured vaguely toward the folder, to be what I'm known for. Too late, Rios said quietly. The intel officer smiled faintly. Relax, Corporal. No one's changing your MOS. But understand, the decisions you made up there didn't just save the people in your platoon. They kept this sector's entire comms.